Hello. In this video, I'm going to take this image here and I'm going to edit it so it eventually looks like this. So stay tuned. So here is our image then inside of Lightroom. Now it's a great image I captured. I'm allowed to say it's great, I think. Anyway, I captured this in Madrid earlier this year, and it's the Palacio de Cristal, or Glass Palace. And it's in Retiro Park, right in the centre of Madrid. Now clearly we can see it's underexposed. Now why is it underexposed? Well, it's underexposed because when I captured the shot, I made sure that I exposed for the highlights, in this case the sky. Had the image been exposed for the foreground, I may well have blown out the sky. And the thing is, in Lightroom, it's very easy to reclaim the shadow detail and to brighten it up. Whereas if the sky is blown out or your highlights are blown out, then it doesn't retain any information and there literally is nothing to reclaim. So that was my thoughts behind taking this shot and the settings that I used. Now if we jump over here, we can see all of that is reflected in the histogram, because we can see our blacks and shadows on this left hand side. It's kind of all the information is being dragged over here basically, whereas on the right hand side where our highlights and whites are, it's lacking information, and that's what we need to fix. A simple mouse over here, by the way, will show me the areas that are completely hugely underexposed, and there is some highlight blowout as well, but I'm not too worried about that because that's where the lights are, and of course they would be super hot. So let's make a start then at editing this photograph. The first set of tools I like to visit on an edit would be the lens correction tools. So we look over here, we have the chromatic aberration removal and the enable profile corrections. Now chromatic aberration is like a purple fringing around the outline of items within your photograph. So it could be around the trees or around the palace itself. And normally I would check this box to remove that. Now, if I just jump down here, built-in lens profile applied. So in this particular case, it's already been done for me. This raw file contains a built-in lens profile to remove the chromatic aberration. So it's already been done. So I don't need to do that, but ordinarily that's what I do. Now the enable profile corrections tool, what that will do is it will remove any distortion in the photograph. Now the distortion would be there because the front of the lens is curved. So obviously that would have a sort of, or possibly would introduce some distortion into the shot. So I kind of want to remove that. Also checking this box would remove any vignetting that is around the outside of the image. Now some lenses are worse than others at adding this vignette. Now a vignette's like a darker area around the periphery of your photograph. Now I do like a good vignette, but it's something I like to add at the end of the edit. I want to be in control of that. So let me just check this box on and off, toggle it on and off, and you'll see the difference. So there's the profile correction applied. So just toggle it on and off so you can see. So it's taken away that distortion. Now if we look at the top of the photograph, we will be able to see that vignette being removed. So you can see here it's slightly darker, and when I check the box it's slightly lighter. So that is what happens when you check that profile correction box. You will fix any distortions and also remove any vignetting around the outside. So that's the first thing I do when I start an edit. And I'm jumping up to the basic palette. Now it does make me smile that it's called the basic palette, because there are some extremely powerful tools within it, and in this particular case a lot of the editing for this photograph is going to be done in the basic palette. So I think they should rename it the wonderful palette or something. Let's have a look at what we've got though. We've got a white balance section, we have an exposure section, and then we've got this presence section. Now ordinarily I would start with white balance. to correct the white balance first. Now, in this case, I'm not going to do that because the image is a bit dark. So I'm going to wait till I've done some other corrections first, and then I'll revisit this white balance and do a correction then. So clearly we need to lift the exposure. So taking a look at the histogram, I can see, as we mentioned earlier, it's all pulled to one side, and I need to fix that. So in this particular case, all histograms shapes are different and exposures are different. But this one I'm going to lift up to around about there. And I can see that my histogram now is looking more healthy. Although the photograph itself, it's improved it, but it still doesn't look right. But we've only just started. Let's do a few more things then. One of the things I need to do is to lift the shadows to bring out all the detail in this foreground. So let's visit the shadow slider first then. And I'm just going to drag that all the way across. I'm going to drag it, say, to around about then. You can see on the screen that has done a great job of bringing back all this detail, and we can see what's happening now in the shot. Now, a consequence of lifting the shadows means that the sky has gone a little bit blown out, hasn't it? So I'm going to drop the highlights next all the way down, and that's brought the detail back, or the exposure back to where it should be in the sky. Now, it still isn't right, but again, we're still on our journey of fixing this shot. Next one would be blacks then. Now, what I like to do is put my finger on the Option key, Alt key if you're on a PC, and when I drag this black slider, the image will go white on the screen, and I can see where my blacks are, and there they are, just creeping in. So I want to set that to just around about here. So just where the blacks are going to start peeping through. So I'm going to set it to -2. Now, setting the whites, I would do the same. Finger on the Option or Alt key. And it's a little bit more difficult with the whites in this case because we have some fierce highlights from those lights. So I'm going to do it by eye in this case. And I'm just going to lift them up. I think they need lifting. So I'm going to put it around about there. So that's where we've got to so far, before and after. And clearly it needs a bit more work on it, but it's getting there, isn't it? And let's move on to the next step, which is the vibrance. Let's add a bit of vibrance then. And I'm going to take that up to, I don't know, let's have a little look. Around about 24, somewhere there. So I've just boosted the vibrance, just made those colours pop out a little bit more. Now, I kind of do that with the vibrance and not with the saturation. Saturation is, as you can see, we don't want to mess around with that one. Not in this image anyway. Vibrance is perfect in this case. Then we have clarity and dehaze. Now, clarity is something I don't use a lot, but I'm going to show you what happens. If I slide it this way, it starts to look like a really, really badly done HDR image. And obviously going the other way, it's going to make it ridiculously soft. So in this case, I'm not going to use the clarity. A little tip for you, if you just double click on the actual tool name, it will reset itself to 0. Now, dehaze is, as you can see there, it's it does what it says. It adjusts the haze. And I prefer this to using the clarity tool. And with the dehaze, I'm going to just take it up to about +15. And yeah, that looks a lot better. Now, it's still not quite right. And that is because the white balance to my eye is wrong. And I'm going to change the white balance. Now, as I said earlier, I would normally do this at the beginning of an edit after I'd fixed the lens corrections. But because the image was dark before, I wouldn't have got a true feeling for getting the right colour, if you like. Now, really, you should look for something grey in the image. Or you've also got these, you can retrospectively change the white balance there. But I'm going to bypass those and do this by eye. And I want to cool the shot down because the actual palette itself, it looks quite orange, doesn't it? A little bit too orange. And I want to sort of bring those blues back out in the sky as well. So I can do that by cooling the shot and dragging it towards the blue. So let's just do that. And you'll see it change, and for the better, I hope. No, it will, it'll change for the better. Maybe somewhere around about there. Let me just take a little bit, yeah. And that looks much better, doesn't it? Less sort of, well, that's the before. It looks miles better, doesn't it? What can I do next? Right, contrast. I'm going to visit the contrast. Now, in some cases, you'll boost the contrast. In this case, I'm going to take the contrast down because the image to me looks a little bit digital. You know, it is a digital image, obviously, but it looks a little bit too digital. And there's many ways to stop your image looking digital, applying film presets and the like. But in this case, with this simple edit, I'm just going to drop the contrast. And I'm going to drop it to, I don't know, -7, something like that. Now, if I dropped it all the way, you can see it starts to look a little bit too washed out. And but I think round about, I'm going to say -10. Now, that looks great. Now, let's do the before and after. Now, I love doing this because you can see that you're heading the right way with your edit. And I love doing this. So there you go. That's the before and that's the after. So it looks great, doesn't it? It looks much better. How can I make that even better than what it is? Well, I'd like to change the colour of the sky and make that more of a sort of teal, aqua kind of colour. And that'll balance really nicely with the sort of orange lights. Now, to do that, I will go down to the HSL set of tools. HSL means hue, saturation, and luminance. Hue is the actual colour. Saturation is how rich that colour is, and luminance is how bright that colour is. And we have a set of tools here. Each sort of palette's got its own little tool here. Never mouse over. Adjust the hue by dragging in the photo, or saturation, or luminance. In this case, the hue. If I click on it and come across here, you can see that that tool is now on the end of my mouse pointer. And I just simply drag up or down. And in this case, I'm going to drag down, and that will, oh, that looks great, doesn't it? Straight away, I've got that lovely teal colour. Now, I could boost the saturation in the sky or adjust the luminance. Let me just adjust the luminance. I don't think it needs it, but just to show you what would happen. And there you go. It's really taken it down, isn't it? Maybe, yeah, just a little touch like that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there then. So I have taken the luminance down a little bit. Now, you can drag these sliders individually, but what tends to happen is sometimes you don't 100% know what that colour is. I know that sounds crazy because you can clearly see it's blue, but if you look, it had a bit of purple in it as well. Now, who knew that? Now, obviously, dragging, using this tool to do it, you make sure you pick up all those colours. So that is why I like to do it that way. But you can individually drag those sliders as well. So let me just close this palette down and let's look at a before and after. So it came in looking like that, and now it looks like this, and it looks great, doesn't it? Can we do more on this? Of course we can. So the next thing I'm going to look at is the effects. Opening up the effects palette, we can see that we have a couple of options. Then we can add grain, and we can put some post-crop vignetting in. Right, first of all, grain. Grain's great in certain shots. Why is grain great? Well, when we shoot with a film camera, the film can apply grain and it looks more real. I don't know, it's just got a better, warmer look. I can't explain. But it works great in some shots and some shots it doesn't. In this particular shot, I'm not going to apply grain. But I am going to apply some post-crop vignetting. Right, so just say that again, post-crop vignetting. And let's see what it does then. So if I drop this down, you can see that the outside of the image has gone a lot darker. Now, this is great for drawing the viewer's eye into what you want them to see. And it's something I really love to do, and do it on most of my shots. Now, I can't really judge at the moment whether I've got that right. So what I tend to do is to remove the feather, and that's the smoothness of the actual shape. So now it looks ridiculous, of course, but that allows me to start playing around with these and these other options, and I can see more clearly what's going on. So I kind of like, in this particular case anyway, I kind of like that type of shape. Then clearly I need to bring in now the feather. Okay, now it's too much, and I'm just going to back it off just a bit. Let me just say, yeah, round about there, midpoint. Just give me a little bit more sky. And the feathers are 52, yeah, round about there. So I think that looks great. Now, without the vignette, it looks like that. With the vignette, it looks like that. Now, I'm just going to back this off a little bit more and just do before and after. And yeah, that looks about right. So that's the post-crop vignetting added. Okay, so let's go full screen. Full screen, wow, it looks great, doesn't it? And when you think it started life looking like this, clearly underexposed, but as I said right at the start of the edit, with the highlights being okay, the sky and exposed for the sky, Lightroom is fantastic at helping you reclaim all those shadows and creating something that looks really nice. So here it is, the finished edit. It looks fantastic. Now, one of the things I would like to say is that is my interpretation for this tutorial of how to edit that shot. It's not the definitive edit. I could carry on with this and change it even further. Another photographer would make a completely different edit. And this is the power of creativity, isn't it? And it's all subjective. I like this. Now, I'm sure if I sat down and remade this tutorial, it might look different. But one thing I do know, it would still look good. And just using those basic tools. So there you have it then, a simple little edit just using the basic tools and a couple of extras. Now I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, put a little thumbs up, think about subscribing if you haven't already done so, and maybe click on the little bell icon to be notified of further uploads. Now in the future I hope to be asking you guys to send me some of your images to edit, and I'll produce a little tutorial video and pop it online. Thanks very much for watching. I've really enjoyed your company, and I hope to see you in the next upload. And take care of yourselves.
Take a photograph and make the moment last.